and you're listening to... Wait, who are you?
So who are you? Well, Jacquelyn, I'm Maria. I'm a software developer at a consulting firm here in Boise. When I'm on a project, then I do a lot of things. I'm a full stack developer, but I do personally like the design side. I feel like I think better to go from like what a user does and like what happens behind the scenes. Is kind of the development I like to do and what I feel like I'm better at.
Yeah.
How did I get here though?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Because you came from, well, I guess we kind of have a similar origin story, but where did you start?
Yes. I think I'll go back to college. I'll start from there because I went to school for advertising and public relations.
Yeah.
Which is not what I do now. And got my bachelor's in that. Kind of worked in the event industry for a bit, which was really fun. But then didn't make very much money doing that at all. And in 2020 when COVID hit, I think they kept me on through May, and then it was like things don't seem to be changing, and so we're not having events, so we can't have employees anymore. Which
makes sense. That makes sense.
So then I got a nice pay raise during the COVID unemployment.
Nice little boost.
Yes, good old days. And then I didn't really know what I wanted to do next. Applied for a lot of jobs. Had a really hard time. Didn't really find anything. But I also knew that I didn't want to, I was in Fargo, North Dakota at the time, and I knew I did not want to stay there forever because it's very cold. And it just wasn't a good fit for Jonathan or I. And so we started building out a van, classic tale, a creepy box van, classic electrician
CIA van.
Yes. Used to say commercial. And we peeled off a lot of the letters, but then we got down to CIA and it was just like on the door. And so we just left that, and it definitely confused some children along the way, which is really fun. We definitely had,
really funny.
When we were living in the van, we were at a state park, and some kid rides up to us on his bike, and we're like parked at the bathroom, and he looks up at Jonathan and he goes, "Are you in the CIA?" And Jonathan just goes, "Yep."
That'll be so funny if we have Jonathan on here sometime, because I could totally see him coming off that way. That's really funny.
It's very funny.
Yeah, I am. I am.
Sure am.
What did you do when you were in the van for work? Like, were you just traveling around and picking up odd jobs?
Well, we saved up a lot.
Yeah.
Jonathan made a lot of money off GameStop. Shout out to GameStop. Yeah, GameStop paid for a lot of our van trips.
So funny.
I tried to do a VIP kid in the van.
Yeah.
And I only had like one loyal student. And so it really wasn't worth the time investment. Like I wasn't getting paid well enough for it. It was kind of a funny thing though that I did. So it was kind of fun, but
yeah. I feel like it's like a classic freelancer kind of boosted income thing, because that was something on my side that I heard a lot about too, and it definitely died down, I think, in COVID whenever there were a bunch of screen restrictions and stuff. But yeah, it was definitely a fun in between thing.
It was.
For sure.
I feel like it like maybe like paid for like one dinner a month. Not lucrative, that was for sure.
Yeah. Especially after taxes, I feel like that's where it gets you. But, yeah. And then where did you end up after the big van trip? Were you in California after that?
Yeah. I have a really good friend that lives in Sonoma County. And she was working at a winery. Her boyfriend was working at a winery. And she was like, if you come like live with us, you can work a harvest out here. And you will work a bunch of overtime. Our funds were getting pretty low. We weren't ready to settle down anywhere, and so we said, why not? And so we went and worked a wine harvest out there, which pretty grueling work. I like knew it because my friend works in wine,
right?
And so she like kind of warned me about it, but like it was like 80-hour weeks for multiple weeks in a row.
Yeah.
And then like Jonathan and I both worked at the same winery, but we had kind of different jobs. So I did a lot of additions, so a lot of adding yeast and acids and whatever else needs to be added to the wine. A lot of like moving wine from one tank to another. And Jonathan did some of that, but then he got to work the press, which seems like a lot more fun. So that's like the trucks come in with the grapes, they go to the press and dump all, like sometimes he was taking like a forklift and dumping bins into the press. And,
yeah.
Sometimes like the trucks just had like nice things that would just dump it. And so then they'd press it there and then it'd get sent to a tank. So a lot of times he'd be like sitting with the lines for that and then pressing and cleaning the tank at the end of the day. And so
that does sound more fun.
Yeah. Because my hands are like raw by the end of it because they were like so just like the acid. There's so much acid that you're adding into the wine. And I hardly ever wore gloves. I probably should have. And I wore gloves like if we were cleaning because we use caustic, but like still your hands just got like so dry and like like the calluses are huge. Anyway, after that I was like, okay, well I don't want to keep doing that. Jonathan does still do that, which is cool. He does that now in Boise.
He's there right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Someday maybe he'll be on the pod. Look forward to that.
Yeah. Little teaser.
And so I started kind of thinking about like what I wanted to do next. I kind of like researched some different software boot camps. I kind of had this idea in my head that like a bad government website that you like can't figure out where to go. Like I wanted to be the person to come in and reorganize it and remodel it. And so I started looking into these software boot camps because I didn't want to go back to college. I felt like college was kind of a waste. So
yeah, I understand.
I didn't want to go back to college. And so I knew about one in Fargo because I lived in Fargo. And so I kind of entertained that one. I like looked into like some fully online ones at like different universities, but like I was like, I feel like it'll help a lot to be in person. Like I feel like it's going to be a challenging school to go through. Mm-hmm. And Jonathan and I were like literally, we left California like the first week of December and we were going back to South Dakota for Christmas. And we were like driving through Boise and we'd heard so much about Boise that we were like, okay, we're going to check it out. Like, and I think we just stopped for the afternoon and I looked up if they had a software boot camp and they did. And so then my top contenders were Fargo and Boise. And I really didn't want to go back to Fargo. So Fargo really wasn't a contender. Yeah. I just like knew about this school and like knew that the connection, like I'd have connections in Fargo and we could live really cheaply in Fargo. But I did not want to go back. And so we chose Boise.
Yeah.
It also helped that the school in Boise was considerably cheaper.
Right, I've heard that one's pretty well priced for what it is.
Probably too cheap, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, the market's really changed now, so, but like when I went through it, like, what a good value.
Yeah, I've heard of some being like, they can really set you back a lot, where it's almost like, maybe I should have gotten a supplemental degree or something.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a point where it's like, why wouldn't you just like get your college degree?
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely like more reputable. Like a lot of employers still look for the bachelor's in computer science or whatever.
I feel like there's definitely a stigma around, which makes sense because you're not getting the fundamentals of the science aspect of like a computer science degree. You're just going straight to the web development part. So I understand. Yeah, for sure. Like there was so much that I had to catch up really fast on and get, but then at the same time, they can definitely underpay you a lot more if they hire from a boot camp, which I think is a strategy that a lot of employers kind of were looking for in the last couple of years of like, okay, well, they're boot camp, so we can pay them a little bit less and then grow them to what we want them to be, and they'll figure the rest out, which is good and bad, you know. How did you get to where you work now?
So I did this school in Boise, and there happened to be, it was like one of the former instructors at the school had moved to a company called Aleda. He was in charge of training there. And I interviewed with Aleda, and at the time, like Aleda sounded like they really had like a culture of like learning and growth. And so I was like, that sounds cool. Like I'm pretty fresh here. Like I definitely have like room to grow. And so that's where I'm a little over 2 years I've been there.
Yeah.
So Jacquelyn, who are you?
Well, I am also a software developer living in Boise, Idaho. I actually just got a new position at a fully remote company as a full stack engineer, but also have a similar kind of path to yours where I'm also from the Midwest. I am from a town in southeast Missouri, and I got a degree completely unrelated to software development. In fact, it was in performance. I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in musical theater. And I had planned for a little while to pursue that, and I had a couple like professional gigs that I did after graduation. I was kind of looking for a change, like due to some like just health stuff and general life conflict stuff. About a year after, and then COVID happened to hit at the same time, and so no more performances, no more auditions, anything. So there was a grant funded boot camp in my hometown, and I was kind of going through the phase of like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? And I had talked to one of my best friends from high school, went to school for computer science, so I talked to him a little bit about it. My sister also went to a boot camp. I think it was out in Boston, but it was a paid boot camp, and it was not a financial decision that I was in a place to be making at the time. So I ended up looking for the one in my hometown, which was grant funded. And so as long as you apply, like if you make it past their application, you can get in for free. And I ended up doing that boot camp. It was part-time, so it was like a 6-month boot camp. And they had mock interviews at the end of it for one of the local companies called Vizient, which is not just local, it's like nationwide. And they really liked me. Unfortunately, my boyfriend at the time was working in the department that they wanted to hire me into, and they had a policy against that. So they sent my resume to a little company in Boise, Idaho, and I got a phone interview. And the guy he told me at the start, he was like, I was a little bit annoyed that I just got sent your resume out of nowhere, but I guess I talked him into it in the first interview. I had a technical interview, and then they offered me the job. They said that it could be a remote position, but they strongly encouraged moving to Boise to like complete the training and have that in-person experience. And I wasn't looking to stay in Cape, and I was kind of looking for an excuse to go. So I had about a month's notice to kind of pack up everything. I had heard a little bit about Boise, but I probably pictured what Kansas is. I didn't have any idea like what was going on there or how great it was. So I didn't know what to expect when I moved out here. And so I moved out here, and then Aleda, where we both worked, had kind of its own boot camp where you train for 12 weeks before you start getting on a project. So went into that 12 weeks of training. It was pretty intense. But on the other side of it, started getting on projects and started meeting everybody, and now I'm here now. I was at Aleda for 3.5 years, and I met a lot of wonderful people.
Anyone in particular?
I met my boyfriend. I met him at Aleda, and a lot of us hang out and get drinks and go camping and stuff, and so that was a really cool thing.
I want to hear more about your theater stint.
Yeah. So, gosh, I don't really know where to start. I mean, I grew up like singing and dancing and acting and all of that. So in college, I mean, it was not like a normal college experience. Like I would wake up and I'd go to ballet class, and then I'd go to point class, and then I'd go to jazz, and then I would go to
sounds fun.
Singing music class, and then at nighttime I didn't have a social life. I would just go to whatever show I was in, like because I would audition for the shows, and I got to be in a couple of them. So it was, I mean, honestly, it was a really cool experience. I don't regret it at all. Like I know it's not necessarily the most sustainable career path, and that was one of the things I think that, I don't know, I have some qualms with the whole college experience, because an 18-year-old, I feel like, is not equipped to make choices for like the rest of their career. So that was interesting, but I did meet some really great people and like have some really close friends from that. I got to travel actually out kind of close to where you lived.
So funny.
Yeah, I know. I think so. I was at the Black Hills Playhouse for a couple shows. Mamma Mia in Oklahoma, if you're a theater person out there. And I think we had figured out that one of the summers I was working there, your husband had a bachelor party at Center Lake, which is like a quarter mile of from where I was staying. Like we would walk, like we snuck out and swam the Center Lake in the middle of the night a couple times. Like, so that's crazy to hear.
That's so funny.
But yeah. Yeah, I mean it was a really fun time. I definitely get some flack for it now, but I think it was a good experience and good to know. Like, I think if I had never pursued it, I would always like have that wonder. But now I know that I want to be able to like and go to weddings and funerals and afford things. So that's nice too. But I also did the VIP kid thing though. I think it was mostly whenever I was working. I had a couple Christmas shows in the middle of nowhere in Indiana, and so I think it was a 600-person town, and they host you. So I was getting paid for the shows, and they like had room and board. So I would get up at I think 4 a.m. and I had a couple classes, and I would just teach these little kids English from China, and it was and it was really sweet. Like I had built up a decent roster, and they were really sweet kids. But I think around a little bit after that time, the company started, like, I think there were some more laws that were getting put in place for teaching English online and everything like that. So that kind of wound down, but it was good supplementary income for sure, especially with a theater income, which is not high. So, but yeah, it was a good time. And, now I'm kind of more in the music sphere, or trying to be. Actually, Jonathan, Maria's husband, and I are in a band, still in the works. Don't have anything out yet, but stay tuned. Stay tuned for all of that. But yeah, does that answer what what you were wondering about the music side?
Do you ever think about doing like community theater, or going back into it at all?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I don't know. I don't think I could ever fully go into it, but if the stars aligned, I've said before that I would go back for like 1 or 2 shows, specifically at that theater in South Dakota.
Oh.
Because it's just really good people, and it's also beautiful. Like the bison out there, we would have them roam through the camp. Like I think it would always be the day that it's called strike, and you're taking down all of the set from one show and putting up the set for the next show, and it's like a huge like 14-hour process. It's a long day, and every like 3 weeks we would change the show, and there would always be, we call it a strike bison, because it would come and then everyone would be distracted and just like walk outside and just watch the bison wandering through our camp.
Crazy animals.
It's like, I think the training that we had for I remember they were like, okay, if you ever run into a bison, just stay still, don't approach it, and if you get disemboweled, lay down and just don't do anything, have someone go get someone for you. Like, it was an actual conversation of like they can mess you up. But I love bison. They're just such majestic creatures.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would go back into it. I'm intrigued by it, but I definitely like the stability of, well, I mean, the perceived stability of the tech career.
Yeah.
Which I guess has changed a lot in the last couple years.
So much. Even I had like my friend from California, like, she was just like, do you think like it'd be a good idea for me to like do something similar to what you did? And I was like, not anymore. Like, I think it's really hard for that like junior level, like straight out of college, straight out of a boot camp level developer to get a job now. Just like AI, honestly, I feel like has like replaced those jobs a lot. Like the smaller like tasks that you would hand off, you can now do like almost instantly with AI, which is, I think there's going to be a gap in the market eventually, but like not yet.
I feel like it's going to take a couple years, and then people are going to realize that since they didn't have any juniors, they're not going to have any mid-level developers, and then it'll kind of pick back up again. But I've been thinking the same thing. Like, I've had a couple friends ask about that, and I don't want to say don't do it, because obviously, like, I did it and it worked out, but I almost feel like I cheated the system in a way, because we were kind of like the last, I guess, class of people that got in before. And then I was kind of on the job hunt for a couple reasons this summer, and I just rolled off a project, so I also had nothing to do. And I was applying to probably 10 jobs a day, and it was pretty depressing seeing like the listings out there. because it's all 5 years plus experience, and especially if you want in person, it's pretty slim pickings right now. So you have to either move or like look for a remote, which is also really competitive. So yeah, it's definitely changed quite a bit. So definitely feel lucky that we got in when we did, because now we do have the experience to, you know, get a job and progress and everything.
I'm also curious, like, just like with learning too, like AI was around when I was learning how to be a software developer, but like it wasn't like widely used. Like Copilot was in like a beta, like it wasn't actually released yet.
Yeah.
And so I'm like curious like what learning will look like in the future, because like I feel like I had to like learn it and then I got this like amazing tool.
Right.
But now it's like you have that amazing tool as you learn it. Like will that be like a better thing, a worse thing? Like is it gonna like just like accelerate people? Or I think it maybe depends on the person.
I think it does depend, because I mean I've noticed myself before, like I've had, you know, ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot solve problems for me that I don't have to think through the problem as critically anymore. And so I would go back and do like problems on Leet code. And I'm like,
I'm so bad at this.
I don't know how to do this. And like, you figure it out eventually, but I was using ChatGPT to help explain certain algorithms to me on Leet code, because I was like, I haven't thought this way in a while. So I think it's definitely a double-edged sword for sure. And I don't know what it's going to look like for especially boot campers. I feel like college, there's going to be more
the
regulation.
So it's different because, definitely like a boot camp, it's like, how do you code? How do you build an app?
You just skip past all of
how does it work? What is it? You skip all that.
I want to say, if I remember correctly, we jumped straight from, I think we learned like a little bit of HTML and CSS, and then didn't learn any JavaScript, didn't learn TypeScript, jumped straight to Angular. And so a lot of that stuff was all just done for you. And the same with, I think we did Ruby on Rails for the backend, which I personally wouldn't have picked that as my backend. I feel like it's not nearly as in demand, but it scaffolds it all for you. It's very like automagic. And so I missed out on a lot of opportunities of like understanding, you know, which obviously like that is the trade-off. It was also a free boot camp. So, you know, like I appreciate that, but definitely a disadvantage in some ways, especially talking to one of our friends who also used to work with us as a data engineer, and he came out with a data engineering degree, and he knew so much that I just couldn't even comprehend as a new dev. But
I wish I was disciplined enough to just like study it on my own. Maybe someday.
My new manager, so I've only known this guy for 3 days, so but he seems really cool. He's very passionate, and he was like kind of talking to us on Friday, and he was like, you guys have a beautiful opportunity to learn about microservices. You should get some books on microservices. And honestly, it kind of gassed me up a little bit. I was like, yeah, I need to get a book on microservices. And I was talking about it to my boyfriend. He was like, what? Like, what do you mean?
I've kind of been feeling that too. I'm like, it sounds kind of nice to just like read and like really like study a book.
Yeah.
Like, but does it actually?
Maybe I'll let you know how it goes. Because I honestly think I might learn better that way than through tutorials.
Same.
Like,
I can't.
YouTube, or not YouTube, Udemy tutorials, I have a really, really hard time with.
Same.
And I don't know why, but yeah, the book this probably sounds ridiculous to people that got a degree because they're like, you didn't learn from books, but I've not read other than Clean Code, I guess.
Yeah. I did read Clean Code. Maybe I should give it another read.
Yeah, I should too. Maybe we can talk about it. Maybe that could be on our list.
That might be a boring podcast, so you guys might want to not tune in for that one, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Unless maybe if we do it with George.
I think we should.
It might still be really boring.
We'll see where it goes. That could be like a part of a podcast.
Yeah, that'll be on our Patreon.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna have a Patreon?
I don't know.
I like that idea.
Where we talk about Clean Code.
Yeah, we can talk about more spicy work topics and Clean Code. That'll be our Patreon.
Yeah.
Be for the nerds.
Spicy topics and Clean Code.
That'll be the nerds and the really, really curious nosy
that'd be a good podcast scene.
Yeah, I like that.
So, what influenced you You talked about it a little bit, but what were your biggest influences to choose software?
That's a good question. So I think if I remember correctly, I was working the VIP kid job and working front desk at a salon for a little while. Like I just moved back home, just decided to take a break with theater, and then COVID hit. And so I think I took a Udemy class on computer programming, and honestly, I think I took it because I was like, that sounds like something a cool person would do. And I was like, let's see what this is about. And my boyfriend at the time he had a computer information systems degree, and he had just gotten a software development job. So he was transitioning to that. So I was seeing him go through that, and it seemed interesting to me. And so after talking to him, talking to my sister, who also was like, I think you'd be really good at this, I kind of just started looking into it. And then one of my other friends, who was also looking for a career transition, wanted to do the boot camp too. And so we just kind of did it together. And I think that was helpful to have like also another woman. I think we were like two of the only women in the boot camp. Mm-hmm. So that was nice to have each other. So yeah, I definitely think it was just like the people around me and being in the right place at the right time. And luckily, like everyone was really encouraging about it. So yeah. What about you? What made you kind of lean into that area, like be more aware of it?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like the interest kind of peaked. It was during COVID. I worked at a high school as like a teacher's aide or a paraprofessional, and it was during COVID. So like for a good portion of it, the kids weren't actually in school. Like mm-hmm. You just would try and meet with them online. So the kids wouldn't meet with you, obviously.
Right.
And so I was once again doing nothing at work. So I had to find something to entertain myself. And so like I still had my marketing degree. And so I just kind of like learned like HTML, CSS, a tiny bit of JavaScript, not very much, on my own. And like I really wanted to build like a killer website because I like tried to make one with like Squarespace. And I just didn't like any of their designs. So I was like, I know exactly what I want this to look like. Like, I'll just try and do it myself. Mm. So I spent a lot of time trying to do that at work.
Classic.
Yeah. And then I also was just like trying to find my like right fit for a job. But then we did our traveling, and I kind of like just put that on hold for a bit. And then so after California, I was like, okay, like I think I'm ready to like pursue this now. Yeah. And like, yeah, I think that dream of mine of like reorganizing a website, like that was 100% like my goal. It was like, I want to be the person that like makes those like design choices. And for some reason I like building it too. Like because I've thought about going into like more UI UX, but I don't really want to like, I don't like spend all my time just designing. Mm-hmm. Like I think I was on a girls trip and we were like, what if you could have any job in the world, what would your job be?
Yeah.
And I said I would be the like creative director that just like comes up with an idea and then like kind of like brainstorms and does like the fun part and then is like, okay, go make it happen. Like, yeah, don't like put in like some of the work and like have the ideas but like not actually execute them. Yeah. Like I'm just here for brainstorming.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really valuable, like there are people that are super valuable to do that. Like you have to have the ideation. So
yeah,
I support your dream.
I think maybe someday.
I think you could. I really do. Honestly, something else that influenced me a lot, which I feel embarrassed to say, but like the day, like it was specifically the women on YouTube. I don't want to, because I know there's like this stigma of like day in the life of a of a software developer, and it's just like someone showing up at Google office, getting all their free food, coding for an hour and going home. But there were a couple women on YouTube that I followed that were like kind of showing the ins and outs of what they do throughout the day. I feel like that also influenced me too, like partially like the aesthetic was cool and it was nice, and I was like, oh, a mechanical keyboard, that's kind of cool.
It's cute.
Yeah, I was like, I could have a mechanical keyboard. Yeah. But yeah, I think that definitely influenced me too, which I'm sure a lot of people like that's how you get influenced into a job, right? It's not, I don't know, it's not uncommon to be like, oh, that seems like a nice, thing to say. Yeah. I also did have this idea of, I don't know, going back to my high school reunion in like 20 years or something, and then being like, what do you do? And I say, I'm a software engineer.
It is a flex.
Yeah. I feel like it's definitely a flex, which now I don't call myself an engineer. I call myself a developer.
I do too.
Yeah. Because I feel like engineer's an architect.
I know, same.
Yeah.
When I was in Costa Rica, though, if I said software developer, like, I feel like they'd be like, oh, you're a software engineer. And I'd be like, so I, like, it was like after like a day, I just kept saying, I'm a software engineer.
Yeah.
So I flexed it there. But it is, like, there's been a couple of times, like, on the ski lift. Where, like, you're with, like, a stranger, and they're like, what do you do for work? And I go, I'm a software developer. And I'm like, what a flex.
Yeah, you're like, that sounds pretty cool.
I'm really smart.
I think I definitely said that at a couple family Christmases, too, because, everyone was worried. They're like, oh, you're in an unstable career, like, when are you gonna get a real job, the performing thing. And so whenever I came back the next year and I was like, well, I'm actually a software engineer out in Boise, Idaho, it sounded very legit. We didn't cover this one. What do you like to do outside of work whenever you're not working to stay sane, unwind?
Do a lot of outdoors activities. Like, I feel like I dabble in a lot, so I'm not particularly good in any. I feel like running is definitely my biggest one. I love trail running. But we have matching mountain bikes.
We do have matching mountain bikes,
yes.
Yeah, we're going on a ride tomorrow, actually.
Yes.
It'll be
good. Like my third ride this year.
I actually have not been this year. I'll just, cards on the table. But
it's all right.
Yeah, we still have time, though.
But yeah, a lot of camping.
You do a lot of crafting too, right?
Yes, I've been sewing a lot, which I feel like I've like talked about wanting to sew, and I've had sewing machines for like years. But I feel like recently I've actually been sewing, which has been fun, and I never use patterns. I should use patterns. I don't know how to sew, but I'm not much of an instructions follower.
I've gathered that over the years. I think that's powerful, though. If you can she made a pair of pants for Halloween last year. You were Jessie, right?
Yes, comfort pants. They were so cute.
Yeah, and they looked great. Like, they did not look like they were patternless. So, yeah, if you don't need a pattern.
Yeah, I think after enough failed attempts, I'm starting to be successful without patterns. And so now it's getting more fun where I don't just waste materials when I make something.
Yeah.
I actually can, like, put something together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do really enjoy sewing and painting and a lot of crafts.
Yeah. Especially in winter. I feel like that's a nice one.
Yeah.
Oh, also the skiing. We have our Tuesday night ski.
Oh, yes. I do love skiing.
Yeah.
It's the year of the 360.
Oh, yeah. Because you had the 180 this past year.
Yes. I got really good at the 180s.
Yeah. That's pretty
They're so fun. And I've been working on my catwalk spins.
Dang.
Took some tumbles.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
There was one time I was trying to do them and I caught an edge, fell, bonked my head on the ground, and my goggles had like the removable lenses. My lenses flew off, and like I lost my skis, and I broke the binding on my ski. And so
oh my gosh,
the people that I was with, like Jonathan and Graham and Isaac, actually, they like waited for a little bit until I like stood up, and then they like thought that I like clicked my ski in, and I think I did ski a little bit, but then my binding was broken.
Right.
And so I didn't get very far before I had to stop again, and they didn't like look behind them again, and so then I was like stuck on the hill, and then they stopped. Like, luckily it was like kind of cat tracky, so
yeah,
I like had to like ski on one foot down to them.
Oh my gosh.
I think someone had like a car key on them, and they were able to like fix the binding enough for me to like go downhill.
I think I heard about this one. I wasn't there for it, but that's crazy that you were skiing on one foot. But
yeah, it was I felt like wildly out of control. I'm like, I don't know how to do this.
I feel like you take your tumbles well though in skiing. Like, you're very I don't know. You're not afraid to fall, which I think is the good thing. we went last year, and I think it was like the second time we had skied together, and I took a really hard tumble, got a concussion, like
That sucks.
blacked out for a second, like was delirious for the next couple days. It's all fine now, like it wasn't a huge deal. But yeah, I need to learn how to fall better, I think.
Same.
So that's my goal this year. You're gonna do the 360 and I'm gonna fall well.
You're gonna fall well.
I'm gonna fall really well, yeah.
I can't wait to see you fall well.
Yeah, it's gonna be really good. I'm gonna be like, I'm okay. Then yeah, it'll be good. But yeah, I think that'll be a good winter activity for us. Yeah.
It's funny, we have a lot of the same hobbies.
We do. Well, I also am kind of the same way, where I think in 2023, at the beginning of the year, I was like, this is going to be my year to just try things, be bad at them and all of that. And so tried mountain biking. I really like it. I'm not great at it, but I enjoy it. And also got into running. Also not good at that. Very slow, but enjoy it. I had never camped until I moved out here, and started dating Isaac, and that was one of the first dates that we had, which was probably like, I mean, against my better judgment in general, is like, oh, we should just go out into the wilderness. But we had known each other for a while. We had been friends for like
that is a crazy
8 months. Yeah. But yeah, I ended up falling in love with it, which I don't know why I hadn't been when I was growing up. I think I was just too busy with all of my artsy extracurriculars and stuff, but I do really enjoy that. And when we go like paddle boarding and like do water activities and stuff. I also have been slowly getting back into sewing more and everything. So we did take a trip to the craft store. It was over lunch technically, so like it wasn't a big deal, but yeah, so I do like that too. And then I guess the other one is music.
Oh yes, I do not have that one.
Well, Maria's actually our band manager, or acting band manager. So that one's been good. I'm a vocalist first, so I'm trying to get decent at guitar so that I can, just be good enough to support the bandmates, but not going to be like shredding by any means. But yeah, I'm excited for all of that. I think that'll be another good outlet. So I guess our last topic is, what is this podcast gonna be?
Well, right now it's just the two of us talking.
Right. Yeah, I guess because you kind of had the inspiration for what this was gonna be now, so where do you think that came from as far as like discussing, professional topics and stuff?
Well, it definitely like we talked about doing one for Aleda, that where we like interviewed different people in the company just to like get to know people.
Yeah.
I'd like talked with some other friends about doing like the PowerPoint nights of like what you do for work, and that sounded really fun.